This trip is in early June. As you can tell by the bug jacket, there's still a fair amount of black flies out. I've traveled about a kilometer down a small river to get to this new lake that I'd never been to before. Was really hoping for walleye. However, I managed to find some pike, and as you're about to see, things get a little interesting. I've just entered a small bay on this new lake, and as you can see by the bend in my rod, something rather large has just bit my worm harness. At first I might have thought that it was a log or something, but by the way it is just literally pulling and pulling and pulling, I know that is definitely not a log, which did kind of cross my mind at first, but I know right away that this is a very large fish. This is always the exciting part of fishing. You've hooked into something big, but you're not quite sure what species of fish it is. Having never fished this lake before, I wasn't sure what to expect. I had found some information online showing this chain of lakes as having bass, pike, walleye, and even some lake trout. Given that it was early June and how shallow this lake was, I had ruled out a lake trout though. My thinking at this point in time was that it was either a large bass, a large pike, or maybe even a monster walleye, which is what I was really hoping for.
No idea what I got, but it's big. GoPro. She's a Walter. He's half.
At this point I still had not seen the fish, so my mind was racing with ideas as to what it could be. I even said to myself, maybe I've hooked into General Sherman. For those who are not Simpsons fans, General Sherman was the name given by the locals to a giant catfish that Homer ended up fighting for several hours as it pulled his boat around the lake. Based upon how strong this fish was and how many runs it was making, I thought that I might have hooked into this lake's version of General Sherman. Having caught large pike and walleye before, I know that they can display different attitudes when being caught, depending on the situation. Some will come in like a log, hardly fighting at all, while others will make multiple runs, peeling line off your reel, refusing to give up. Finally, I see the fish and have my question answered as to what it is. It's not a monster walleye or bass, but rather a large pike. So now you're probably thinking, okay, well that's great. You'll just net the fish, right? Well, the fish had other plans.
It's big too.
Knowing that I had a large pike on the end of my worm harness, I was getting very concerned that I was going to lose the fish, as pike have extremely sharp teeth which can cut through your line very easily. I can say that I've lost many a worm harness due to pike, many of which were dramatically smaller than this one. One of the keys to successfully landing a large fish is to let your rod and reel do the work. Trying to horse them in by just reeling in as fast as you can will likely result in the fish getting off. As you can see, my rod and reel are getting quite the workout as my drag is working overtime every time this pike decides to make a run.
I saw his tail. It's a really big pike.
Every time I make headway on the fish and get it close enough to the canoe where I think I might be able to net it, the fish then makes a run and swims away. This is where time is your friend. All we have is time, as they say. I will say that my patience was starting to wear a little thin here as I was battling this fish for several minutes already and was really hoping to land it. As we get a glimpse of the fish here, what amazes me is the fact that it had not yet sawed through my worm harness with its teeth. I tie my own worm harnesses using 20-pound fluorocarbon line, which is abrasion resistant, however it would be short work for the teeth of a pike this large. All it takes is my line to make contact with one of its teeth, and bye-bye worm harness.
Okay, you need to come in so I can unhook you.
What happens when you don't have the right equipment for the job? I.e., there's no way that the fish will fit into your net and will likely look like a hat on the fish's head? Well, you quickly realize that you have a serious problem on your hands. After initially trying to scoop the fish into my net, I instantly came to the conclusion that landing this fish with my net was not going to happen and that I was going to have to resort to plan B, hand landing, which presents another set of unique challenges. These challenges include not getting a hook in your hand, not getting bit by the fish, and actually being able to land the fish without it getting off. Definitely a lot that could go wrong, and not my first choice of how to land a fish.
Okay.
For this trip, I was definitely not expecting to catch a pike this size, especially since the lake that I was fishing isn't that large. But that's the excitement of fishing for you. You never know what you're going to catch.
This guy's just like swimming.
Now here comes the challenging part. I figured at this point that the fish is done fighting and ready to be landed. Without a large enough net, I have to use my hand. I recall seeing a video years ago of a guy trying to pick up a muskie out of a net when all of a sudden the fish thrashes and his teeth slice his tendons at the wrist. There was blood everywhere and apparently the guy had to get reconstructive surgery done. Thinking of this as a possible outcome and seeing the fish jump and thrash at my first attempt to grab it, I'm apprehensive and nervous about making a second attempt. However, I do manage to successfully grab it, avoiding injury to myself and the fish. Due to the size of the fish, I decide to partially rest it on the side of the canoe as I get it unhooked. Bringing it inside the canoe was only going to lead to possible injury of the fish, and I really had no intention of keeping it. I worked quickly to get the fish unhooked as it only had one of the worm harness hooks in the side of the mouth, perfect for conservation and being able to release it for another angler to catch. Although not the largest pike that I've ever caught, I'd say it would be in my top 3. I'd estimate that this fish was approximately 10 pounds and as you witnessed gave me an amazing fight. After about a minute of holding the fish in the water beside the canoe to revive it, it swims away, giving me a small splash as to say goodbye.